All right, Lagos, it is 15 minutes gone past 5. You are tuned in to Smooth 98.1. Marketplace is where we are at right now. And on the marketplace, we get to talk about everything regarding how the markets basically stocks, bonds, those kind of things. Right. But we will be taking a further look into the Ember months as 2025 is, gradually, slowly but gradually coming, gently to an end. But this time around, we're taking a look at the investment landscape for Nigeria. I know this usually sounds more like personal finance, right? But hey, even if it sounds like personal finance, it is very important to have such conversations because it's more than just the financial aspects. This is more from a policy and market standpoint of the country and how things are panning out, what things we have done, what things we need to improve on. So you need to come and get the essence of why I always talk about making investments. Yes, it's key to have investments, whether old or young, because some people say, hey, it's only for old people. At this point in time, you need to also be having the right investments. And don't think it's too late. Yeah, you may think we're in October already. What kind of investments can I be getting myself into? Well, this is where we get to talk about the things you need to know and why it is important to have investments. However, my guest joining me virtually to share insights on this is Oyinkansola Aregbesola. She is investment associate at AAG Capital. Good evening, Oyinkansola, and I hope your evening is coming along just nicely.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes.
All
Thank
right, all right. Lagos, don't forget you also get to be a part of the conversation. In case you're wondering how you can share your questions, your thoughts, contributions, 0911 999 0981. That is the WhatsApp platform. You can share your thoughts, contributions, anything interesting regarding the markets, investments that you've made. Hey, someone could just be listening to you right now and be better informed as to why they need to make this right, investments. But yes, let's get into the conversation. So, in terms of investment environment, well, let's start with stocks because I'd actually mentioned that earlier in my intro. So, the stock market is up over 38% as of this year to date. And I wonder what has been the trigger? What has made it been on the upward rise?
Thank you for that question. So before I get into the details, speaking to the stocks, I would actually speak to the environment. And we
Okay.
see that the macroeconomic environment generally in Nigeria has been improving, right? We've
Mm,
seen inflation continue to, post decline on a year-on-year basis.
okay.
Currently at 20% levels. So, coming from 30 all the way from 38% and all of that. So yes, so the macroeconomic environment is improving, and we are also seeing reforms. I mean, the reforms that we've seen from 2023, all the way to
Okay.
2024, we've seen, different reforms that, that is basically pushing uh, the environment in a, would I say, basically placing us in a better position, so to speak, and also
Right.
helping the economic environment. So, I mean, we've seen GDP, the recent Q to GDP numbers at 4.23% growth. I mean, that
Mm,
is impressive. And basically on the back of the performance in the non-oil sector. So the services sector is, posting a lot of gains. And even
right.
the oil sector itself did, post gains this the Q2 2025 report. So yes, the macroeconomic environment is improving, and the expectation is it will filter down, or we are seeing it filter down into the performances of the companies within the country. So the will I say the natural response from investors is to be positive, right,
Okay.
about the environment and then invest more. So we saw the likes of the consumer goods sector, posting a lot of gains. I mean, currently it's up 96% year to date.
Okay.
And on the back of stocks like Goa Foods, Nestle, and NB in that space. And
Right.
basically, if we should recall, there's the issue of the FX revaluation that we had in 2023, how it affected their performance, how it affected their bottom line, because
Okay.
most of these companies had, debts in USD. So they had to revalue, those debts, and that affected their performance. So we've now seen like a stability in the exchange rates, right? So
Hmm.
that filtered into their performance, and we are now seeing the gains in the stock market from that sector.
Right.
So yeah, so there's also the banking sector.
Hmm.
Elevated, monetary policy rates has also helped them, post gains basically. And if you recall the insurance sector, there's the talks, there are talks around the recapitalization of that sector. So
Right. True. True.
actually, basically people were positive. Yeah, they had that, positive expectation from that sector. So those were the things that really drove the market this year so far.
Awesome. I'm actually glad to hear that. There's something positive at the end of the day, especially when invest. See, when it comes to stocks, most people are usually scared and skeptical. They're like, it's not where I want to be. I don't want to. They're more scared and not willing to even get into that space because with stocks, you can hear, oh, it's crashed one thing, something. So it's actually good to see that, hey, we're actually on the upscale. But do you see this momentum being maintained until the end of the year?
Okay, let's have two answers. So really, so yes, we should actually see, continued positive performance because the macro has not changed. We are still
Right.
expecting inflation to decelerate further in the year. I mean, some analysts are even forecasting as low as 16% to close the year, right? So that should spur positive sentiment in the equities market. However, so I have a caveat. So the caveat is, the recent capital gains tax, the current tax policies that will be implemented 2026 going forward. The capital gains tax basically on the gains from the equities market. But it's one thing to note that it's actually targeted towards institutional investors, given the size, the
Mhm.
ticket size. So, but I still expect, I still expect that to, cause like a mixed sentiment in the market going forward. Given the fact that some of these investors would want to reposition their investment, they might want to, do like a reposition or strategy, another strategy basically,
Right.
maybe to move into another market, or let's say fixed income market. So we can actually see some form of mixed performance before the year end just because of this tax policy. But aside that, the macro is great. I mean, yeah, there's GDP growth. We're also expecting improved GDP numbers for Q3, and then exchange rate is stabilizing. I mean, Naira is below 1.5. So yes, so aside that, we're
it,
expecting
it seems
positive.
we're doing something right so far. But there's something that you said that struck me, and it has to do with investors, especially where 2026 and the gains are concerned. How do you think the foreign investors will now view Nigerian stock market if, as we're looking at the tax from next year, it might be viewed as very, I don't know. I'm not sure what the right word is, but you know what? I would like to know what your thoughts will be regarding this. Do you think investors will back out, or do you think that this will encourage them to want to put in more funds, knowing that, hey, it's not business as usual?
Okay, so for foreign investors, I think, will I say we've actually, I would say we've tried in the sense of like the way they should perceive us basically, because I mean we've had good macro conditions, so far this year, and
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria is one of the countries where to the foreign investors actually like a cheap market because of the exchange rate, right? So, I mean, looking at those other factors, it's good enough reason for any foreign investors to pack their funds and invest in Nigeria. So, I really do think it's still like a good one in terms of how they
Okay.
should view, yeah, how they should view the markets. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so it's nothing, they shouldn't be too scared. It's not something it's like you said, the foreign exchange rate is cheaper, so it's not something that they won't be able to still get the gains from at the end of the day with despite how much it is investing in the market. But what sectors though of the stock market would you say are most appealing right now?
Okay, right now, so I would still go back to the consumer goods, right?
See, it seems those guys are
I've
always
been
doing something.
firing, I've been firing on since the beginning of the year. I mean,
Right.
aside the FX issues that has somewhat stabilized,
Yeah.
there's also lower inflation. So basically, it has helped them fundamentally, like it's in terms of their fundamentals. So we should still expect them to perform better than they've done so far. So in terms of their our Q3 our Q4 expectation, their results should be
Should be
stellar.
a whole lot
Their
better.
full year results should be stellar. So yeah, so I'm very sure. I don't want his version, so I'm sure investors would want position ahead, for such to pack gains. There's also the
Right.
banking sector. I'll still, say that the banking sector is still appealing.
Hmm.
The monetary policy rate is still elevated, even though we've seen the rate cut, that is last month. So it's still elevated. So I'm still expecting the net interest income to be somewhat robust. So yeah, that's also a sector to look out for. And finally, the telcos. Definitely have to mention the telcos. I mean, coming
Yeah.
from where they were coming from in 2023 due to the FX issues and all of that, but we've seen them stabilize, particularly
Mm.
speaking to MTN now. The fact that
Okay.
they kind of restructured their loans. There's always the need for data, voice, their services is always needed, right? So I'm expecting, some form of growth in that sector as well.
Okay. Glad to hear that. Usually you're looking at that sector and you're like, nothing to look. But yes, I agree with you with consumer goods. It's more like they're always on top of of the markets of the chain, and seem to be cashing out more. Anyways, for those who want to dabble into the market, you need to ask your financial advisors. So it's not just a hearsay. You know that okay, when you're getting into that investment, you are looking forward to reaping the gains, but also know that hey, with some gains, losses can come. But
Okay. Mhm.
honestly, it's not you're not sailing smoothly. You have some bumps on the road, so be well prepared. But we'll talk about more of that. We'll touch a bit more on the money market and bonds. But we need to take a pause when we get back in. We'll talk about the money. We'll talk about a bit more about treasury bills as well, and see what is in store for Nigerians and investments going further. Lagos, you don't want to move a muscle. You want to stay here on Smooth 98.1.
Game plan is incomplete without Maggi chicken flavor, made with a flavorful formation of onions, celery, turmeric. It's my game changer. Elevate the taste of your everyday dishes with delicious rich chicken flavor. Oh yeah, let's go.
New Maggi chicken flavor, my game changer.
Okay.
Sesame and full connected. Almost go into the market.
All right, Lagos, it is 31 minutes gone past 5. You are tuned in to the marketplace here in Smooth 98.1. And indeed, marketplace. Today, we are taking a look at Nigeria's investment landscape as we sort of, close out to 2025. Gradually, slowly but surely, we're getting there. Yes, yes, I know. It's still early days of October, but before you know it, December is here. So have you made the right investments? Do you have the right stocks? Are you making are you asking your financial advisors what it is you need to have done properly? If you haven't, well, I have a guest who's shared insights and, giving you those tips and tricks to figure out what you need to be doing where investments are concerned. My guest joining me virtually is Oyinkansola Aregbesola. She is investment associate with AAG Capital. So Oyinkansola is, like I said, sharing insights. And if you missed out on the first bit, well, not to worry, you'll get insights further because yes, we're talking about stocks earlier on. Now let's shift gears. Talk about the money markets. Yes, move to fixed income. Usually that one is like a very touchy conversation. But let's talk about money market and how appealing are Nigerian bonds and treasury bills.
Okay, Nigerian bonds, treasury bills. So I would say it is appealing, and the
Okay.
reason is because specifically to the retail investors, right?
Okay.
The fact that it is number one, it's issued by government, and we know the characteristics of
Hmm.
investment. It is risk free. So in essence, your whatever return you're going to you are told you are going to get is what you will get, right? So the fact that it is risk free, it's not like equities, meaning you can dump your money in equities can go
Hmm.
sideways, can
Yeah.
down go or then go down. So the fact that your capital is not going to be eroded, it's one of the advantages of investing in treasury bills and MTN bonds. But aside the fact that it's risk free, we've been seeing the stock rate or the interest, on the double digits for a while now. Like it's quite high compared to where it
It
was,
was
for example,
before.
years ago. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there was a time that the stock rate was like 4% or 3%. There was actually a time like that. So I mean, compared to now, that you can see 15%, 16%, right? So yeah, so those two factors primarily, I would say, is the reason why it is appealing. Right.
Mhm. Okay. Like you said, it was really it was a no-no before, but now when you see the percentage that you get to, in a sense, cash in, people are more drawn now to getting treasury bills and bonds. But hey, as always, diversify your portfolio, have a little risk, leave a little. But I know that Nigeria's public debt has reached about the number here is 149.3 trillion, and that was in quarter one of 2025. I think it represents about 52% of our debt to GDP ratio, which is about, if you want to calculate it, is about 40%. Does this give cause for alarm? Because we
Yes,
only have, because here's why we only have for quarter one right now, at least tentatively. So I know quarter two and moment, third quarter is, we're still trying to get the details for that, but really, should we be afraid or should we be calm?
Yeah, so I think my response would be we should be on the lookout for the data, not
Okay,
necessarily be scared. And the
right.
reason why I'm saying this is because where are we at the moment in terms of like our macro environment? Right, we've seen, I'll take for instance the GDP, for example,
Okay.
can use the GDP. I mean, looking at the growth that we've seen so far this year, particularly the contribution of the service sector, right, to GDP, it has been performing quite well. And
Right.
there's also, I mean, one of the sectors, or let's say the sector that's been dragging GDP for a while now is the oil sector, right? But we've
Right.
seen the likes of the Dangote refinery coming on board, and we've seen a sort of stability coming into that sector on a broader basis. And that actually, we saw that in the Q2 numbers for GDP, it was
Mm.
positive, right? So in terms of the macro environment, so the economy is expanding. So as if the economy was not expanding and we're seeing debts continue to rise, then I would say it's a cause for alarm because really you do need funds to to expand the economy. So if we're seeing an expanding economy, we've seen um, basically economic activity improving. I would say that I'm not saying we should take our eyes off the numbers.
No.
Yeah, so we're looking at numbers, but then it's not something to be scared of, given the fact that we are seeing what we have now. So we
Right.
should be looking out for infrastructure, rural development, right? So those are the things that we should now start looking out for and then asking questions. When are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? But then in terms of the macro space, yeah, I mean, and there's also if we're talking about this one side, there's also the revenue aspects, right? So we're looking at in terms of the government revenue, we've also seen some form of improvements on that leg as well. And going forward into 2026, I'm actually expecting um, improved revenue, given these, different reforms that is coming into place, including the, tax reform. So yes, it's not something to be scared of, but we should also still pay attention to those numbers as they come.
Fair enough. Just have an open mind and think of positives. That's basically where what I would say regarding that. You shouldn't worry so much, but it's not also something you want to go to bed and say, oh, okay, everything's fine. You still want to look out, be on the lookout and see how things pan out. But yet, I know that we have a high debt profile right now. We still see interest in Nigeria's fixed income securities. Why is that?
Okay, so I would say that I think one of the reasons is because of the limited options when it comes to
Um,
investment in
okay,
Nigeria, and I'm speaking specifically to much more like retail investors now, aside institutional investors. I mean, how many people, even the equities markets that we're talking about, how many people actually have equities? How many people actually, actively buy it?
good
So, I mean,
question.
some people, all they know is the treasury bills and
Treasury bills
then
and
and the
and
FZ
stocks.
trading
That's a
bonds,
basset.
right? So and they're fine with it, right? So I think the role of financial literacy would also come into play because there are actually several other asset classes that one could invest in. But how many people do would actually invest? I mean, there's something like gold. I've not heard anyone
Right.
talk about investment. So there's something like ETFs, exchange
Yes.
traded funds. There's something like REITs, that is the real estate funds, more like an equities, like more like an exchange traded fund, but specifically towards the real estate, sector.
Mm-hmm.
So that is if you don't want to invest directly, if you don't want to, you don't have the huge capital
Huge
to
capital that you need
start like
for
a real
treasury
estate.
bills.
Okay, so let
Yeah.
me
Okay.
invest in something that mirrors the real estate, sector. So there are other options really, but I would say, when I say, do we really know about this, or are we comfortable putting our money in this investment?
Mm. That's a really interesting subject you just raised because not a lot of people understand what those ETFs and the like stand out for. They just assume, oh, okay, they are hearing the name. What does that even mean? To them, it's just rinse and repeat, Jerry. Don't stress me. All I know is treasury bill stock. Let me just do the regular ones I know. The other one, see, you other people will face it, but if they do their research, and that's why I always say you want to diversify your portfolio, have things spread so that you can also tap in from different aspects and see how your investments can grow. And let me talking about real estate. Does real estate hold promise even with a housing deficit? Because I've been hearing numbers. I keep seeing people post things. It feels like, are these for real though? So let me let me get your thoughts in on this.
I think definitely there's a lot of opportunity in that sector, and many of us are not actually taking, when I say we're not taking advantage, right? I
Okay.
mean, we know how much a house costs in Yaba, Lagos.
Cost an arm and a
Like,
leg.
I'm not going to take your beer. I'm not staying. I'm just staying comfortably in
No,
Yaba.
let's stay in the on the mainland.
Exactly. So yeah, there's actually a lot of. I mean, aside residential, which is the one I mentioned, house in Yaba,
Right,
house in Lekki, there's
right.
hospitality, there's commercial real estate.
Ah,
There's also, you
yeah.
can even go aside maybe just the normal bungalow or two-bedroom flat and all of that. There are a lot of students really that don't have
True,
hostel,
true.
right? So I mean, imagine,
That's an
you know,
investment, actually.
yeah, building an hostel outside of the school
The
or
campuses,
somewhere.
yes.
There are a lot of big students that will rush, these hostels. So there are a lot of opportunities really in real estate. And I know that the way some people go about it, they don't even necessarily directly build and all of that. They just,
Get
there's
the
also a
land. Yeah,
lease.
yeah, just
Yeah, they
give
just
it
buy
off
the
the right.
and they just, rental income for the next 15 years.
Mm. So, in case you were wondering, ETF, you now understand why you need to do your homework and see how you can tap into that space as well. But what other assets in Nigeria actually looks attractive to you? Yes, you.
So actually, to me, because, and I'm still going to go back to, I'll borrow a sector for the equities market to talk about this asset
Ah,
class, right? The
okay.
consumer goods is bumbling and all of that.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes.
So, I mean, food, right? I mean, you cannot do without
You
food.
can't go wrong.
So agriculture really, and it's really like a sector that we've overlooked for many years. I mean, it's like it's stereotype, like, oh, a farmer in a village,
In the
or
village, oh,
agriculture is
but you can
actually
actually have
much
that.
more.
I
Yeah,
agree.
agriculture is much more than that, and there's a lot of opportunities in that sector.
Talking about that greenhouse, greenhouse farming is something people need to look into, but I'm not going to be the one to teach and all that. Do your research. don't come and steal my own thunder from underneath me. But hey, it's been an interesting conversation this evening. Thank you so much, Oyinkansola, for giving all this insight. But how can Lagos get across to you, get more insights, and figure out where they need to be investing in?
Okay, okay, so you can reach out to, you can follow us on LinkedIn Capital, right? And I'm also on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram as Your Finance and You, and
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn as Oyinkansola Aregbesola. And our company page is on LinkedIn. We post research reports that we could actually feed on in terms of, to see which sectors to invest in at AAG Capital.
All right. Thank you so much. Lagos, like I said, so much to get insight on. However, you need to do your own homework. If you have a financial, um, mentor, or you have your finance guide, you can also ask the questions and they will direct you in the best way or best path to take. But as always, I will keep reiterating, diversify your portfolio. You never know what it could do to you and what it can make for you. You see all the big guys, big guns, in quotes, they diversified their portfolio. Don't sleep on only one thing and think that that's how you're going to make it. But that's how we draw a curtain today on the marketplace. We have so much more in store for you here on Smooth 98.